David Cole, Peter Honey, Edgar Dale. Along with the aforementioned names, there exist several other psychologists, philosophers, and scientists that have attempted to, for centuries on end, identify the best mechanisms for teaching and learning. One such scientist, Neil Fleming, conceived the learning styles idea. The idea that students can be categorized as 4 distinct types of learners based on sensory input, better known as the VARK acronym, as you can see before you on the screen. Presenting a more layered philosophy, Fleming also argues that one may use a multimodal way of learning. In essence, learning by using 2 or more styles. By a show of hands, how many students, parents, and more importantly, teachers present here today believe in this theory? Exactly. The popularization of Fleming's postulation is rather pertinent today, given that a significant yet growing proportion of learners and educators believe in it. On countless occasions, however, the theory has been proven to be both inaccurate and redundant. Today, give me the chance to tell you why. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Varun Pabreja, and today I present to you the learning styles neuromyth and what schools should do about it. The first grave error that the learning styles theory makes is that it conflates the idea of abilities with style. The idea that there exist individuals with much greater ability, such as sight or hearing, for example, is something that is regarded as a pillar of psychology. In other words, it is a fact. However, as Daniel Willingham, a professor of psychology at the University of Virginia, so eloquently finds, the questions in the VARK questionnaire themselves equate one's ability or one's skill with one's style. There also exists a lack of conclusive evidence regarding the effectiveness of the theory. Studies as far back as 2009, such as that of Harold Pashler, distinguished professor of psychology at UCSD, and his team, dictate that there exists fragmentary and highly unconvincing evidence supporting the theory, therefore falsifying it. Furthermore, in 2016, Hajime Otani, a PhD in experimental psychology, and his team had found that learning styles had absolutely no association with objective aspects of learning. To add to this, or to put the final nail in the coffin, in 2018, a team from the Indiana University had concluded that learning styles shared absolutely no correlation with the studying strategies and revision strategies employed by students. The third most prominent error that the learning styles theory makes is the philosophy behind the test itself. The idea that the exploitation of one best skill will improve learning, better known as the meshing hypothesis, stems from the fact that different sensory inputs are processed in different parts of our brain. This idea is incorrect from both a neuroscientific and philosophical perspective. From a neuroscientific standpoint, the separate structures that interpret the different sensory inputs within our brain are highly interconnected with one another, thereby allowing for cross-modal activation and transfer of information between different sensory modalities to occur. However, just for a second, let us put aside all the evidence provided against this theory. From a philosophical perspective, the theory would still be wrong. With time, as the skill of perception through only one skill is honed, the student's sensory perception from the other senses gets diminished. On a surface level analysis, this may seem like a minute sacrifice for an increment in grades. Nonetheless, on further thought, once we comprehend the complications and implications that such inefficiency can have, we are forced to recognize that learning through such a flawed system would result in the drawbacks outweighing any potential benefits. Moreover, one would argue that the duty that the establishment of schools represents is not of cultivating one skill, but of making well-educated, adaptable, and multi-talented students. I pose to you the following question. Can the goal of molding a strong-minded, independent, and versatile young leader ready to take on the challenges of the 21st century ever be achieved if one and only one skill is capitalized upon? I've borrowed about 4 minutes of your precious time elucidating to you the issues that the implementation of the learning style system presents. Now that I've shown you what's incorrect with the system, give me the opportunity to explicate what can be done. A. Performance-based assessments. In a PBA system, there aren't rigid testing structures as commonly seen in other curricula around the world. Performance-based assessments assess a student based on their involvement in the task itself and not the end result. Essentially, through this more engaging, collaborative, and interdisciplinary testing mechanism, students are awarded grades based on the process and not the product. Therefore, instead of emphasis on how to learn, as the learning style system does, the emphasis is laid upon how well the student has learned the content in an inclusive and flexible manner, rather than a rigid and harsh system as commonly seen in institutions around the world. B, practical-based learning. In this type of learning, there is neither a need of memorization of concepts nor a reliance on rote learning. Instead, students are encouraged to actively collaborate with one another to find efficacious solutions to appropriate problems. Through this, the students are encouraged to take charge of their own learning, ergo creating a sense of academic responsibility within them. Instead of focusing on learning of concepts through sense, practical-based learning enforces these concepts through context. It is a rather elegant system that could transfigure our approach to both teaching and learning as a whole, and will thereby aid in the introduction of a new, broadened scope of thinking from an early age. Before I move on to my conclusion, I would like the audience to imagine the following scenario. Instead of learning about concepts crucial to your education through boring lectures within a daunting classroom, you were given the opportunity to traverse through these ideas yourself, become independent, and in the end, imbibe these self-same concepts by your own accord. Within this system, you could traverse through the ideas within the world of economics or computer science through the use of relatable examples that would integrate these ideas within your mind, rather than through the attainment of a surface-level analysis based on what your educator dictates. What if you could walk through the journey of learning yourself while the onus of your education still lay upon your teachers? Would you not give this system a chance? The previously mentioned solutions are just two out of a vast plethora of different solutions that we as a society can implement to transform our learning process as a whole. What if schools around the world could implement these systems and profit from an enriching malleability that's never been explored before? Our society would attain exponential progress from a creativity in students that hasn't been tapped into. Wherever the system, schools should choose to prioritize evidence-based, research-based proposals rather than factless, baseless misconceptions. After all, just as necessity is the mother of invention, education is the mother of leadership. Thank you.